This weekend, Ryan outsmarts DK, Andy masters bending, and we adventure through dreams as a dogman. I'm Ryan.
I'm Andy.
And this is Weekend Rental, episode 172. Welcome, everyone, back to another episode of Weekend Rental Podcast. We are at episode 172, which is crazy to me. We're clawing our way desperately. Well, I was going to say to 200, but irrelevance popped into my mind. Both of those, probably. So we're getting there.
I think that's the mark, right? 2 irrelevance, probably.
Yeah, right. And beyond, as Buzz Lightyear would say. So. How you been since we last recorded?
Oh, pretty good.
Yeah, we're dealing we're in the middle of dealing with the first Midwestern snowstorm we've had all year, and hopefully the last. So it was a light one, but they still called off all the schools, which I'm pretty sure those schools were only doing because they're like, hey, we banked all these snow days, and we're definitely not going to get to use them. So
yeah, the teachers union would be like, we want those days off.
Yeah, it was kind of crappy though, because it's also parent teachers week for us. So no, I don't know how that works when they cancel your scheduled appointment. I assume they'll make it up, but we'll find out. But yeah, other than that, nothing too crazy going on around here. Looks like you've played some games. I played a couple games. Might as well talk about the most obvious one that we'll probably hit on. And I picked up that Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake. Went camping or glamping, I should say, with my son the weekend that came out. So we rented it's like a heated cabin out in a state park nearby. So they got electricity, no other main utilities other than, an outhouse to crap in. So we get out there and we hung out, had a campfire, but then, it gets dark at 5:36. So what are you going to do for the next however many hours? And we basically played through all of Donkey Kong or Mario versus Donkey Kong. We got up to the end boss fight and just kind of ran out of time to finish it. And I'm told, I think there's a couple extra bonus worlds beyond that in this version, but
oh, really?
Yeah, what's kind of fun is they added a 2-player version. It doesn't make the game any more difficult. In fact, if anything, in most cases, it makes it easier. There's some exceptions because you can actually cheat and kind of like bounce off each other to circumvent some of the planned routes, I guess.
So is it, you're completely separate, the same thing, so you can, like, one person could split off and do one thing and the other person do the other? Or
to some extent, but you share the screen, and if you really push to opposite ends, I think Jesus cat. I'm gonna kill this cat. I think you do the Mario bubble and bubble back. That's the dynamic. Basically, it's Mario and the second player is Toad. Skill wise, they're both pretty much the same. It just adds, I think there's one more key you have to get throughout the stage to progress to the second part, but with 2 people doing it, it's so much faster.
Sure.
It's fun, it's like, it's not overly polished. It's not a noteworthy game. If you've played the original, it's still just that game, which is a very solid game. But I would say it's like the problems are still there, right? Like the puzzles are painfully simple to very frustrating on occasion. Most of the time it's pretty balanced as far as challenge goes. But I think the real crime here is just charging $50 for what should be $40 maybe at the high end for something like this.
Yeah, I was going to say 20.
Well, 30 would be what 30 would be my absolutely.
Yeah.
But for Nintendo, I feel like they should have set it up, because forget me or help me remember, but certainly not on the Switch, but on the Wii U, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, that was a $40 out the door game, was it not? And that was a new game that was ripped out of an older game.
Yeah.
And then it was more expensive when it got to...
Yeah, it was $50 on the Switch.
Because they added 2-player, right? So it's I don't know why they had these kind of in betweener tiers before, and I guess the answer is Switch tax. Seems to be how it works.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about this in a second, but we're at the last moment of the Switch, and
Yes.
there's still not $20 or Nintendo Select games
Yeah, they
even
just
at
rumored that
$30.
might happen, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
that I mean, I can't imagine it would be $20. I would say 30 probably, right? At this
30,
point.
or I could even see 40, to be honest. I could
Yeah.
see them doing that.
Yeah.
29.99 would be great. I mean, historically, those were always 25, right?
I think they were 20 on the Wii.
Okay.
Um and then, the Wii U was like, we're not going to do that cuz none of them sold a lot.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, when did they do like the players select? Like there was like Pikmin 3, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, and like one or two others, maybe like a sports game, I think
Yeah.
might have gotten it. But it was so late in the Wii U that anyone who still had a Wii U had bought those games long
Right.
before then. And
Yeah.
you didn't have any
You're right.
new
You're
people
right.
coming
I
to it.
think they did do selects, didn't they?
They
Now
did
that you
on,
said
yeah,
it,
they did on Wii U.
I forgot they
Because I
did
just
that. I thought
remember
for sure
like
they didn't.
I just remember that was the controversial thing at the time, and people were like poo-pooing the select labels for Pikmin 3. They're like, I can get it for select, but I'm not doing it. It's like that
Yeah.
elitist collector bullshit. Just like it's the same game.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. There's not much left, that's for sure, on the Switch. I think that Peach game is like the biggest thing left, right?
Yeah, we got Peach. Isn't there another remake, Thousand Year Door, coming up? That'll be the Thousand Year Door, which is a great game if you want to. I mean, those games are great for the dialogue and the humor, and not
I
so much the
guess.
gameplay.
I guess, but what does that I mean,
Right.
because of that style, what's the remaster really? I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I guess clear off the jaggies, but it was already a pretty
Yeah.
gorgeous GameCube game and has not
Mhm.
aged really. So, yeah, yeah. Well, Metroid Prime 4 at some point is still right. I mean, it was in the trailers
Hmm.
or the directs. I don't know. It's probably not. That's going to be next gen, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Probably not launch.
no, it. I don't know. It's hard to recommend Mario versus Donkey Kong at full price. It's easy to recommend as a game, but and it's a good co-op game with a younger kid.
Yeah.
And to be honest, there's not a lot of moments in it where you get at odds with each other. There are a couple situations, but you can always drop out and go to solo mode when it makes more sense, like
Okay.
boss battles and stuff, and then have someone jump back in. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of the better co-op in a platform puzzler type game.
Which is cool. There's not a lot, like co-op games quite like that
Right.
that you can play two-player and still make it work.
Yep. You've been playing anything new?
Oh, boy, I've been playing a whole bunch of stuff.
Such as
I'll talk about what my kids have been playing first. How about Bluey,
that show that I haven't watched.
a show that it's adored in this household. They made a video game about it, and they put it in the hands of a company that specializes in great licensed video games, outright games, I think they're called.
Okay.
They're not very good at video game development. So they put this game out, and it came on Game Pass. So of course my kids immediately wanted it, and they played it a while. And holy shit, that game is bare bones. There is
Oh, really?
maybe like 4 levels in it.
Wow.
And then it pads it out by finding a whole bunch of stickers kind of around the house, different areas, and then a couple mini games. And that's the game.
What's the core gameplay? Just walking around as the Bluey character? Or?
Yeah, so you get to does have multiplayer, so you can be one of 4 people in the family.
Okay.
So that's a plus. But yeah, you just go to different locations. The first one's their house. I think one of them is the playground, and you see other characters from the show here and there, but mostly it's just to go collect things. Very light platforming. Which, I mean, the game is. I mean, the show is a Disney Junior game, so you can't imagine
Right.
you can't build it too heavy. It's for small kids. But the kids got to, I think, level 3 where they go down to the creek, and it told them to pick up a bucket or something, and they tried the level 3 different times, and it was broken. You couldn't pick up the bucket no matter what you did.
How dare they?
Yeah, I don't know what they did. The kids figured it out eventually. I don't know if they rebooted it or what, but finally got past that bug. And yeah, for being like one of our kids' favorite shows, I just feel like it's dropped off immediately. It was like an afternoon, and it was like, well, we're done with that.
Well, it's a good lesson in the harsh reality of how your favorite TV shows are always going to be your worst games in
Right.
most cases.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if there's any new content in here or if they're using like the same like voices from the show.
Oh, sure. Just recycling
Yeah,
audio.
like clips from show. Yeah,
I
I'm not
think it'd be
sure.
way cheaper, right? If you're already
Yep.
paying up for a license and you're going to half-ass it anyway.
Yep.
Huh.
I'm surprised though, because I guess maybe, Disney, I don't know if they technically own the rights to it, like a video game of Bluey, I guess. It just seems weird that they would put, if it was a Disney property, that they would put it out with, this developer. I don't know.
I always find it strange that these type of games make it to Game Pass, like this one and like the Peppa Pig one. I'm like,
Mm.
like, are like 5 households playing these things ever before they take them off the service? I don't know.
I mean, they're trying to grow that. I mean, obviously, the Xbox has always seen was, the more mature
Right.
adult thing. And I think they've really tried to push that to be like, no, this is the family box. Everybody can play it, which is it's kind of nice to just have something on Game Pass like that where like my 4-year-old can play it,
Sure. It'd be nice to have like a quality family-friendly title, but outside of Nintendo, there's not a lot of those, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bummer because yeah, it would be bad to buy this game. I think.
Luckily, you never have to.
I think I did on the Switch, and I have no idea where it's at.
Oh no.
So.
Oh no, that's too bad.
But yeah, what else beyond that? What else did I play? I played another game that was on Game Pass, which is called Brotato.
Yes,
have you seen this?
I've installed it and I've been meaning to play it. I know roughly what it's about.
Do you like Vampire Survivors?
That's basically what I've heard. With potato.
Yep. Yeah, it's a lot like Vampire Survivors and Binding of Isaac. It's got that art style kind of. And
is it more open world or is it room to room?
No, it's just one square.
Oh.
So it's not even visually appealing as a Vampire Survivors where you can kind of scroll. Yeah, it's a little bit more bare bones than that. Okay. And I have to say it's not as satisfying.
Okay. I mean, very few things are as satisfying as Vampire Survivors.
Right. Well, first of all, I don't think it has like the combination stuff where you really get there's never a moment where I feel absolutely overpowered in this game.
Okay.
Which is part of the problem, I think.
That's part of the key driver that like keeps you engaged with the Vampire Survivors.
Yeah, at least have swings of that, right?
Yeah, you want to hit God tier on occasion.
Yep. Almost everything in here is like, yeah, you get, more damage, but you're losing out on luck, or you're sacrificing something to gain another thing, even if you're gaining just slightly more of that thing.
Okay.
So it really is like down to like what kind of build you can get out of the random stuff that's available to you.
Sure.
Every character is a little bit different, kind of like in Vampire Survivors, but some of them are just kind of dumb in this. You know, just doesn't work the same way. And some of them, I don't know if you could beat the game. It would be tough, I think. But I have beat it with a couple characters, and
What was the
I don't know.
timeline to like get a perfect or get a full run? Like how many hours did you invest?
I found a really good run probably on my sixth run, I
Oh
would
wow.
say.
Okay,
But
that's
I think
fast.
the character had a really good build the way I
Okay.
set it up, I think. And I'm sure I could probably replicate that, you know, if you find that character again and then, you know, say these are the things that you want. But I'm trying to do it with other builds, other characters, and it's not happening the way I want it to. Um,
Can you do co-op at all? Even couch co-op, or is there nothing like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That would be a good call. That's the surprising thing. Like I figured, you know, you got to at least one up Vampire Survivors because, I mean, that's already a $3 game, right? Like
Right.
you
Right.
kind of need to one up them to even say you're a game in the same genre. I would say.
Yeah. I will say the artwork definitely, when you say Binding of Isaac, the artwork and the character design really felt like Binding of Isaac from like the visual aesthetic.
Yeah,
Yeah, everything I read was like it's very Vampire Survivor like.
yeah, and it does have parts like Binding of Isaac, where if you get the wrong thing in a build, it just messes up your whole build. There's some things that are just actually bad. Whereas like Vampire
Okay.
Survivors, I don't like other than taking up a spot to maybe something that doesn't help you as much.
Sure.
Everything helps you in that game, right?
Yeah, I mean there's stuff that you'd prefer to have over others, but for sure,
Yep.
like you're usually not making a bad choice with whatever you pick.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a little frustrating that you can shoot yourself in the foot. I'll have to check it out. I've had it installed since I think it came out. I installed that one and Go Mecha Ball right around the same time, and
Oh yeah.
just haven't gotten past Go Mecha Ball yet. I should go back now that I'm kind of off Pal World and off all that stuff. I've been playing some more Sea of Thieves, but it's
Oh
been
yeah.
crazy. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have to check
That's
this one out.
it's the game that I've been playing probably the most of, but at the same time I the hook of that game is just better than the game itself, I think,
Sure,
which I'm just playing it because of the ease of use on Game Pass. Whereas, like, if I could find another game that probably does this better,
you do it right.
yeah,
Well, there'll be a
and
Steam sale soon.
yeah, I could jump into Vampire Survivors again. I think there's a lot that I haven't played, I guess, but
Yeah, I almost picked up that like fanatical bundle with like a bunch of those games just because it had
mhm.
Vampire Survivors. I was like, well, I don't have it on Steam yet, but I'm like, do I need to start it on like a third platform? Probably not.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. There's the progression between them is just unlocking new characters, which,
Oh,
and I think you do get new items that might show up, but there is no like progression in the case that, oh, now you know you're spending your money in between to raise a stat, you know.
right. Yeah, I think that's the extra layer that's kind of like part of the secret sauce of Vampire Survivors is
Hmm.
it gives you the illusion that you're making choices that I mean make the game easier for you. I mean, and they do, but I mean it's still just like mostly learning the weapons and the grind.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of at, where like vampires, like you said, Vampire Survivors, you feel like, okay, I unlock this thing now, I probably have a better chance, I'm going to make another run. And now when you die in this game, it's just like, well, I don't want to play that character again because it didn't work out, and what's going to
Sure,
change next time, you know.
sure. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that it came to Game Pass, so it's like
Yeah.
you didn't drop a few bucks on it and
Right.
put it aside after like half a day.
Yep. um and finally,
Dreamlight Valley update.
well, what's going on in there? I don't know. I don't know. Gaston is cooking steak or something. Who knows? But the there's a fishing game on there right now on Game Pass.
Really?
Yeah. My dad was over and he's a big fisherman, and I was like, just going to show him how that worked in a video game. And my son played it for a while, and I played it for a while, and holy cow, it's just the game is just all about tension in the string, and it's like that's not where real fishing is not just constantly changing your tension in your string every 2 seconds. Just
That's
to make
all
sure.
I'm doing is adjusting drag. That's the key.
Yeah. But something that is very realistic is like you walk up to the warden. This is why I bring it up, because it's hilarious. Because it's an open world, so you
Sure.
can like go up to this. You're at a park or something, and you go up to the warden, and he's like, well, "Tell me about all the fish that you caught and everything." And then he's like, "Be sure to look around and find invasive species and report the invasive species to me." So part of this game is going out and finding and documenting all of this stuff.
Is there like wild invasive species, or like you finding like gators in like the
I
Midwest?
no, I think they're talking about like plants in the water that are just
Oh,
like, or zebra mussels or
I was gonna
something
say
like that.
zebra mussels and yeah,
Yeah,
jumping carp or Asian carp or
yeah.
whatever. Huh. So they're like trying to low key educate people on. Does he also tell you to like wash your boat as soon as you get it out of the water?
I haven't got a boat yet. I'm just a poor guy on a
Oh,
dock right now.
that's too
But
bad. Should get a dinghy.
yeah,
What's is it like a licensed like tie-in at all with?
I don't think so. They made a hunting game. I forget what this game is even called, but they made a hunting game. I remember playing that a while ago. But yeah, now there's an angler version of it.
Nice.
It's kind of interesting, but
Man, somebody needs to do like a good one of those. Like, remember how good like the open world like survive mountain man sections of Gun were? Like that opening area. And like you're just like, I'm like a badass. Like I'm Robert Redford out here doing this thing, you know? Like somebody should do one of those where it's like just I guess you can make the argument that Red Dead is that, but not really.
kind of, yeah.
There should be like a randomly generated, like out of the wild sort of game where your decision, and I guess there are those games too. Maybe I'm talking about my ass because The Long Dark or whatever it's called is basically
Yeah.
that. But yeah, seems like that'd be cool if done
Yeah.
right.
I mean, none of those games, those are more like crafting survival stuff where
Right.
it doesn't go really deep into things like this,
Yeah,
you know.
it'd be cool to see
You're,
like hunts, gather, navigate, you know,
yeah.
survive. It'd be kind of cool. It'd sell like 2 copies, which is why, as I'm talking about it, I'm realizing that nobody's done this, but very much a game I would like. Yeah. Well, I might have to check that fishing one out just for the laughs. I did see a YouTube video and someone was playing the meta version, the meta quest version of um, Power Wash Simulator, and I'm pretty convinced that I need to buy that now. Like watching someone shimmy themselves on the floor underneath the tractor to spray it in VR seems really cool. Like I could totally zen out for a couple hours and like spray the undercarriage of a gnome or two. So
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I wonder, it'd be really cool if they could like take like something like a chair in your room and just like cover it in like fake dirt,
yes, so you feel
and
like
then you
you're
have to
still
spray it
sitting in
off.
filth. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, that would be cool. Like a little AR tie-in. I like it. Yeah, yeah. Well, besides playing games, there's been some pretty continuingly grim news.
Mm.
The first thing I saw is that several sources seem to cite that the long confirmed launch of the Switch successor coming for sure, it seemed like this fall, has more than likely been bumped to 2025 due to supply chain issues, which I thought we were kind of past some of that, especially since they're using LCD screens instead of OLEDs
Yeah.
reportedly.
I I think the one of the things was like they want to make sure that there's enough stock available for people, and I'm like, when has this ever been a priority for Nintendo?
Yeah, and the thing is like it seems like it has to be coming from a reputable source for their stock to have dipped enough. Like I don't know if they've
Hmm.
had like, an industry insider or, an investor close to Nintendo, but that's such a crushing blow because like you said at the top of the show, man, the Switch is aged and it is showing its age. And
Hmm.
it's had a good last 18 months of games. But it's just running on fumes, I feel like.
And especially they're not taking advantage of. I mean, the other two competition are kind of shitting the bed this year too. So
Yeah, especially by announcing if you're Sony that our console is dead, like it's in its elder years. It's like, motherfucker, please. Like that thing just got going. Why do console
yeah.
cycles need to be in a 5-year run? We've hit like historically your most successful console generations have been the one that have ran long in the tooth. You know what I mean? The PS2 was around forever.
Hmm.
The PS3 and the Xbox 360 had unnaturally long
Yep.
lifespans.
I mean,
Like,
I feel like the PlayStation 4 just died last year.
yes. And in
Yeah.
fact, it's hard to even say is it I mean, yeah, I guess last year is because they're not gonna do any more crossover games. But yeah, when you were still getting, you know, Forbidden West and that stuff. And the thing is like, does innovation have to be in the hardware at this point? Like graphics are good enough, and there's way more they can squeeze out of this generation. So why are we rushing to move hardware? Like just sit on it and make better games. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't
And
get it.
maybe not, the VR thing was probably a bad idea for
Yeah, I
them
mean
to
they
make
know
a
that
second
because
one.
they've stopped talking about it as soon as they released it. So
Yeah.
again for the second time because everybody thought it was a good idea that they did a second one. But yeah, I just I I'm really curious to see what happens because theoretically then like we could be getting the Switch successor and within a year we're going to have the next PlayStation potentially.
At least like a pro version, I'm sure.
Right. Which do
You
we
know?
can we stop with that? Can we stop with the pro versions? Does it have to be a thing?
Yeah.
Did it make a goddamn difference the last generation? No. They
No.
prototyped their next generation consoles. And I have news for you. The Xbox Series S is still your X. So they're still selling you the same old shit.
Yep.
It wasn't an upgrade. It's current gen, people.
There's no they took the disc the disk drive out of it. So
Yeah,
it's even a downgrade.
I just don't know. It does make me worried though, like because I was banking on like all the Switch having or all of Nintendo having like going into the holidays of this year was like the fact that new hardware was going to be there. Like they better have like a Prime or something that they haven't like set a date for or announced yet, because otherwise, God, after July, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
It's
they did that for 2.5 years with the Wii U, basically, where nothing came
sure,
out. But
sure, but look at the industry as a whole though. I mean, how rough it is right now, and then nothing's going, Christmas for all of them are going to suck.
oh, 100%.
So what is that going to mean for the end of the fiscal year? It's going to really suck.
I mean, I think it means like they're gonna have to do deep discounts to get the last holdouts,
Mm.
or in the case of Switch, maybe someone who would also like to add a light to their house or something, you know. Um, but yeah, it's wild. And then the PlayStation news too that came out today was again another round of layoffs. 900 people let go at Sony. I think the sad part for me was the fact that they came out and announced that yeah we were making a new Twisted Metal and That is one of the games that got axed.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, which they said it
Really?
was going to be a games as a service game, which I think is funny because that's what The Last of Us was supposed to be, and then they kind of pulled it away from being that. But
Mm-hmm.
that's sad because I thought for sure we would get some like real Twisted Metal action with the TV series. I'm still saying I'd love a anthology or something, or
They
even just
got
like
to,
an update of Black.
yeah, they got to do something, right?
Yeah, but yeah, 900 is significant for Sony. Um,
And they
it
shut
sounded like
down
lots of
London, right?
games. Yeah, yeah, it sounds like lots of games were in the pipeline that got axed. So,
Hmm.
which kind of makes me wonder with that Bungie acquisition too, because they brought Bungie in to like do games as a service, and then all they've done since then is cancel all their games as a service. So
Yeah.
like, when are they just gonna gut Bungie? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because I mean, that's why they bought them, was because they were
Right.
experts at that style of game or
Yeah,
that
because it sounded like the
that
agreement
format.
was they'll fuck off with what we do with Destiny, and we'll help them make games as a service. And now they just don't have that in the pipeline.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Sony's like, why are we like hemorrhaging money? Because it's not like ongoing development and support and DLC for something like Bungie is inexpensive. I'm sure they're looking at that and they're like, this isn't good, right now, especially.
Yeah.
As much as I love Destiny too.
Who's talking about that anymore, though? I feel like
Right.
nobody does.
It's the diehards, right? It's the people that
Yeah.
still get together with their raid party but I can't tell you the last person who's like, hey, have you checked out the new update or expansion for that? And
Right.
the answer is no.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's still enough people there that makes sense, but I don't know. That games as a service stuff, it's like people can only play so many of those. They only have so many.
Yeah, you only have so much time. You can pick like basically one or two as your game, as your forever game, right?
Yeah.
And like that just kind of eventually, if you don't, and that can work if you have a good group, but like eventually people fall off and then you always find yourself in the same thing where it's like, well, I'm the only one doing this now. So, and I get so disappointed with something like a Destiny 2 and like Bungie because the core gameplay there is so compelling and so good. And they just get into the expansion grind of like, you have to read like a 200-page manual to understand how to grind out to get the gear thing to be more legendary for this. And it's just like, that's not the game I want. Like, the game I want is what you developed. And now you're going to sit on this for 8 years while I wait for the next chunk of hopefully the part I enjoyed. Because
Yeah.
I've never found those expansions to keep me engaged because it seems like all they do is add raid content, right? And that's not what I like about Bungie for the most part, or
Right.
Destiny.
Right. And they're fun to do once maybe, but
Right.
then the repeatable stuff, it's like
Yeah.
I can't believe we're in 2024 and the you know, I'm just talking about a game. I was just talking about a game that's run based, so I can't say too much, but
It's a little
I
different when it's more of an immersive open world sort of game though, right?
yeah. I mean it is. It's a lot of these games are fueled by never-ending filler, by repeating the same content over and
Yeah.
over.
And even Sea of Thieves largely is a great example of that too. And the only reason I think I've been having fun with it is like I haven't seen most of it. But
Mm-hmm.
even now, like I've sunk probably 35 hours into that game, and I get the loop. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make it less fun, but I don't know how long that's going to keep me there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be so many games that are, if they haven't been killed yet and they launch, they're just going to be dead right away.
Yeah. Again, like we've been talking about, like all this stuff is just like a continuing compelling reason to just say, hey, I'll buy a decent gaming PC.
Yep.
uh, yeah, Steam is at least reliable for some fun. And Epic, never buy a
Mhm.
game, but
Yeah.
have a library of infinite games.
It's always something, right?
Spend $5 on that store and I have like, I don't know, 200 games. It's great.
Uh Speaking of games like that, my nieces and nephews still play Age of Mythology. Somehow, well, they released it on Steam, I think, a while ago, so you could actually play it. But before
Right.
that, they were like hooking up these like kind of scary like peer to peer apps that were just like you type in the other person IP addresses in, and like how you
Okay.
used to do it.
Right.
Kind of like a GameSpy knockoff, but now they kind of took over. Um, but they are remastering that game
Oh,
finally. They've done a lot of Age of Empires stuff, and I think they even put a new one out recently. So it's nice that they went to the mythology one because that was the one that I was into when I was young.
sure.
That was like the one RTS game that I kind of really got into. I've since dropped off because I just don't like. I don't have the skills to do an RTS in a competitive way at all with anybody else.
Sure.
I like playing, through the story and stuff like that in StarCraft and all that, but multiplayer, yeah, I just get my ass kicked every single time. But I found it pretty surprising that these are still like happening, and even in that world, they're not making necessarily new ones. They're kind of still remastering these games from like forever ago.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is like, are they picking up new player base, or are they just like trying to appease what was left of a once grand audience?
Yeah,
You know?
I don't know because I mean, like you look at those like chat servers to find those multiplayer games on that service
Yeah.
before, and there was like 10, 15 people on there, so
Yeah.
they were constantly playing the same people over and over again.
Yeah, it's funny because like these are the type of games, like that type of game, and then like even like I got a coworker who still boots up like an old Ultima Online like propped up server. I'm like, why? Like I get the nostalgia aspect, but do you really like dumping time into that?
Yeah.
And you're just like, I guess there's those people out there who just can't and don't want to let it go. And there aren't a lot of those being made anymore, except like as you mentioned, a remake, just to get
Yeah.
stuff up and running on modern hardware. But interesting. I mean, those
Yeah.
games were great when, that late 90s, early 2000s, like that was the heyday, especially during
Mhm.
like the whole, Mac can do things too. And everybody was trying to make the crossover games, and which lasted all of 2 years. Uh, but yeah, I have very little need to scratch that itch 20 years on from that.
All right. Well, and especially now, like these guys have been playing it for damn near 20 years now. And
Yeah.
they'll invite me to play. Like, hey, do you want to play? I'm like, okay, yeah. Well, how's that going to go?
Easy
I've
kill.
yeah, the 20 years of meta going on in this game to know.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
But
And I just love like the dedication to an old game like that, to the point, well, before it made it to Steam, where you would just like set up your own like bootleg peer-to-peer networks and like go on Reddit and like find people who are playing. I mean, and I suppose Discord helps a lot now too, but
yeah.
yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Speaking of Discord, thanks a lot, Discord, for killing our weekend rental Discord username.
Oh.
I think I sent that screenshot. Like, these have to be real people type names. I'm like, why? Like my other Discord name is Vidjagamer. How is that a person? But whatever, Vidjagamer's fine. So not that it matters. We don't have a weekend rental Discord, but the fact that we had a weekend rental Discord user that is now being banned from the service. Well, I mean, I guess we could change its name to adhere to their
Wow.
policy, but
There's a guy out there actually called The Weekend. So, I mean,
that's true. And we got Gary's weekend rental. It's a real fucking clusterfuck. Which reminds me, I gotta get that cease and desist sent up to Gary.
oh boy.
Ah, fucker. Can we extradite from Canada? Is that allowed?
Sure. I'm sure our court systems are very aware what podcasts are, even at this point.
Uh, anything else been going on? Oh man, yeah. What's the Pokemon one?
Oh, they put out their Pokemon Direct because Pokemon can't be in a regular Nintendo Direct. They have to have their own
Oh,
thing.
I didn't know they got their own directs. That's how out of the
Yeah,
loop I am on Pokemon.
yeah.
And what did we
Talk
learn?
talk about a games as a service bullshit.
Okay.
I mean, they just parade through every Pokemon app that they have. Pokemon Go, and it's just like, here's this special going on. If you go in there and you get this bundle, blah, it's just there was probably like 5 things in a row that was like that, where it was just like log in now and you get your 1,000 diamonds or whatever.
Also, they can get like 1,000 or two ad views on some bullshit. Huh?
Yep. Um, then they showed off a new mobile game, which is the Pokemon trading card game in a
Oh,
different format, and they're going to start charging for digital packs, I think.
all right.
Yep,
I'm sure people are
that's
clamoring for that.
that's where this is going.
At least do something interesting. Do like a QR code on all like a new line of cards that you can buy physically and also just suck into your that's a way better idea, you know?
That's actually what they do right now. There
Oh,
is a
really?
did in each pack. There is a QR code on one of the cards
Okay.
that you get a digital pack in the app or whatever. But this seems way more streamlined. They got a lot more going on, and yeah, it's going to be more of a, we're going to make you buy this shit, in the app.
Double dip, right?
Yep. So
Speaking of QR codes, I'm sure you've used Microsoft Authenticator plenty in your life, especially with your line of work, but we've been using it more at work because we just switched to M365. I love how laughably dumb that app is with QR codes. Like you'll pull it up, it will take a picture, and it's got like 1/100th of the QR code in the picture that it takes you, but it still authenticates. So I'm
good
sure
enough.
it's yeah, I'm sure it's actually reading a QR code, but like just the fact that it shows you that it failed, but you get the green light is great from a security perspective. You're like, yeah, my organization is safe. Thanks, Microsoft.
I think it's actually just a captcha to make prove you're not a robot. That it's like, do you
He
know what a
tried.
QR code
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, that could be. Like, he attempted to take a picture of the QR code. Must be the guy we think it is. Yeah. Just so laughably bad. It's great.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the other two companies, well, these other companies are making AI shit that scares the hell out of me. So
Yeah, well, I mean, we're real close to the Terminator apocalypse, I think.
that thing where Google showed off where it's just generating video games now, that's pretty wild.
I mean, that's going to be the future of these people that just make shovelware for like Switch and Steam,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like they're just going to like type in a hypothetical game, whatever it craps out, they're going to slap cover art for, which they'll also have the AI generate that. And then they'll be like 99 cents. I mean, it will work,
Yep.
sadly.
I'm sure it's probably happening right now as we speak.
Yeah, for sure. We'll
Mm.
probably get some gems, just like a really hilariously great broken train wreck of some piece of shit.
I'm not entirely convinced the Bluey game isn't that. So
Might be on to something.
yeah. I did want to talk about the main thing I probably spent a lot of time this last week.
Okay.
Uh, we watched the entire first season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is the full act or the live action version. That's not a movie. They tried a movie that didn't work out so good.
Yeah, they dropped the ball with that movie.
Mm-hmm.
How does the show stack up?
Pretty good. Obviously it's it's a Nickelodeon show, so that they didn't really like make it too adult.
Sure.
Other than, I mean, the show already has a lot of adult themes in it.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely like a T for teen sort of vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they did a pretty good job with it. They covered the first season of the anime or the cartoon in the first season here. So I did enjoy that they took their time with it. I was worried that they were going to try and just do the entire arc all in one season,
Okay.
knowing that Netflix might not renew it,
Yeah.
But if they are able to do, what is it, all 3 seasons, I think this would be pretty good. Um, and if you're not into the cartoon, this is a good format to watch that show in.
Yeah, I'm curious to check it out. Did it get much love and like budget as like a One Piece, or is it a little more laid or bare bones?
I would say it's probably on par. I mean, there's some special effects that look a little bit wonky. They're not, amazing. I will say the acting is not good. There's a lot
Oh,
of
really?
bad acting in it.
That sucks because One Piece nailed that. Like that was the
Hmm.
strongest part.
Yeah. Um, I, I don't know if it's because of just like they took a lot of people from different races that I don't know if the culture, the accents of their culture really meshed the
Oh,
exact way.
gotcha.
Um, it's in a cartoon, it's just like people, right? It's like, oh, these are the people. But when you make it live action, you have to pick actual people that look like things, and you know, the snow or the water tribe, is kind of. I think they're kind of trying to shoot for like a Native American
Sure.
kind of vibe to it, but I mean, there's white people, there's some people that are obviously native, but then you have some like Pakistani people also.
Yeah,
It's like, oh,
that's where the modern day like inclusivity must happen doesn't work in things that are like definitely supposed to be segregated pockets of human beings.
right, yeah. I mean, these
When
people are
nobody's
supposed to
intentionally
be.
trying to leave someone out, but like I don't know, if Samuel L. Jackson walks out of a teepee, something's wrong here. You know, like
Yep. Yep. Um, Actually, now that you think of it, I don't think there are any. I haven't seen a black person in this show.
God damn it, Nickelodeon.
Yeah,
Racist.
but if you have not, I mean, if you've not seen the cartoon, which, hey, it's a Nickelodeon cartoon, but I will stand on the hill and say, or die on the hill saying that that's a better show than Game of Thrones.
Oh, wow.
Like,
The animated one you're
yeah,
saying. Okay.
like there's the character work in that show is infinitely better than a Game of Thrones.
Well, I fell off of Game of Thrones, so I
Hmm.
need to watch more Avatar. I've seen very limited Avatar. I've seen the live action movie. I've seen a few episodes of the show.
Hmm.
So this will be my first. If I sit down and watch it, it'll be my first real like in depth viewing of anything in order.
Yep. Yeah, if you can get past the acting, it's pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, I guess I was gonna ask, did you? I don't know how much you follow like comedians, but did you watch the Shane Gillis SNL this last weekend?
I caught like 2 clips of it.
Okay.
Caught the one that he got in a lot of trouble with. Of
Which
course,
one was that?
the being your mom's best friend or something.
Oh, the opening monologue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which so I don't watch Saturday Night Live anymore. I haven't for years, but I watch a lot of like comedy. And Shane Gillis I find funny, and the only reason I even watched this one was because he's famous for historically getting like canceled from SNL before he even got on the show because somebody pulled like a podcast clip of him making like an Asian person accent. So I just thought it was great that his opening monologue was he used the R word. He talked about everybody being gay in the audience. Remember when you were mom's best friend when you were 12? Remember when you were
Yeah.
gay? And then he used it to also then make fun of his dad for being a volunteer high school like women's or high school girls basketball coach. It was just like I don't know, it was the most non PC way to come back from like being, and he even opened his whole like monologue with like, "Hey, I don't know if you know me, but you may or may not know, but I was fired from the show. Don't Google that."
Yeah.
It was pretty good though. There's some like legit great skits in there though. I think like there's one with like a Green Bay Packers butt plug that was I thought was great, but then they did a spoof on the Limu Emu and Doug where
Oh, really?
where the emu goes rogue and he starts murdering people and planting evidence. It was great.
I gotta watch that one. That one sounds pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting footnote from like a. I always love when people who got fired from SNL are invited back to host, especially someone who got right at the start of that like cancel culture got and he's bigger than ever, because
Right.
I mean you watch his material and like, he makes a lot of it's comedy, he says a lot of stuff that's yes offensive, but it's not like genuine or coming from a mean spirited place. Like he's just laughing at stupid shit because it's a joke, so
Yep.
I thought it was pretty good. And I think it's
I,
hilarious that he's now the face of like Bud Light too.
yeah, that was I watched a skit of his the other day. Have you seen the drill sergeant one?
I don't think so.
Or no, the grill sergeant. He's basically Guy Fieri
Okay, yeah,
with
I've
like
seen parts of that.
with Vietnam PTSD or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, that was another one I liked from SNL was they did because the sneakers they did a white men can't Trump, and basically the sneakers turn you into like Donald Trump. It was great. So funny. Oh well, I suppose we're at staff picks. What I'll let you kick it off. I'm curious what this one is. It's not what I thought it was.
Yeah, so my pick is something called The Broom. Um, and it's not the
Oh
movie.
hi Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. That's a good movie.
No, it's
Um,
not.
um, it's funny to laugh at anyway.
Man, that
It's a
could
good
be in
bad
David
movie.
Crane's Amazing Movie Time. I'm just saying
Mm-hmm.
at some point
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm. That movie is obviously famous for being very bad, and this is a video game that's no way related to this.
It's got to be a
That
horror
movie.
game, is it not?
Uh,
No.
now
Oh,
it's got spooky elements. So
okay.
what this game is, it's a whole series of games. It's came out a long time ago. It was like a really good on like when tablets really started taking off, like iPads.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like puzzle boxes. So it's basically like these very intricate puzzle boxes on, you're flipping a box over, finding a whole bunch of different ways to interact with it. Um, and just to get deeper into a puzzle box or find something across on the other side of the room, basically trying to find a secret. Um, and I introduced it to my son because I have it on Steam. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't played that in like a decade. So we booted it up, and yeah, it still holds up really well, especially for you know my son is really likes those type of puzzle games, and yeah, he really enjoyed that.
Really
Yeah,
nice.
um, I think the first one is pretty short.
So you're just like in a room solving puzzles in like a 3D space.
Yeah, yeah. The first one I want to say we played the second one mostly, but the first one I want to say is almost exclusively like one puzzle box, so it's not a
Okay.
very long game. Then they obviously, because it was such a hit, they kind of made bigger, better things.
Interesting.
I wonder how many they made, if they keep making these or not. But yeah, they work really good on a tablet too, because you're obviously like
Touch controls, you can flip
yeah,
them. Yeah, that makes
you're
sense.
flipping around and pinching. It is one of those games where you really have to look at. You pick up an item and you really look at like every side of it to see what's up with it. There's probably a clue or something in it.
Okay. I'd
But
imagine these are pretty cheap nowadays.
oh yeah, probably $1.
Nice.
But yeah, that's all.
The room.
The Room.
Well, my pick is going to be a YouTube channel. It's called Will Survives. I'm not mentioning it because I think it's good. It's a basically he's like a 19-year-old, 90-pound white kid who makes rap music about being in the forest, and he's also trying to live off grid. And he plans to move to Alaska next year. And he uploads the most just cringe-inducing, um, terrible ass backwards survival videos where he's like built like a dugout shelter in the wood. Basically what I'm saying is like watch this not because it's good, but because I'm pretty sure this kid's gonna die. He's gonna get himself killed, and that's why I keep watching because I'm waiting for him to like trip over a gun and kill himself, or like, I mean, I don't want any harm to come to him, or like a cougar to eat him, and I'm fully expecting this to happen because he's just so completely incompetent. He started out the fall season building this like half dugout wood cabin. He put a wood stove in it, and then decided that it took up too much space, so he pulled his only heat source out, and then he was shocked by the time winter rolled around that his 5 gallon jugs of water were freezing outside, and he stores all of his food in a like vehicle cargo carrier thing that he just lays on the ground in a mesh tent outside. He's just real special, this kid. He really wants to live an off-grid lifestyle, but he is just so painfully dumb, and everything he does is dumb, and everything he basically has built himself. He's so proud of like these structures he's made, but he's basically in the last 6 months accomplished making what looks to be like a meth den for like a homeless person. And he's always covered in filth. He adopted a couple dogs that are always covered in filth. He shows like footage of his cabin where there's like just an inch of dirt on the ground. It's so bad. You have to see it to believe it.
So yours is pretty much the room where it's
yes, pretty much.
he thinks he's doing something great, but
Yeah.
the rest of the world is like,
and I just don't understand his comment section because he's blown the hell up, and then probably because I mean he seems genuine and he's but like everyone's just so supportive of him, but and he just keeps talking about like I'm moving to Alaska next year, and everyone's like, please don't go to Alaska, you're going to die. Like I don't think you understand what Alaska's like. Because he's like in New Mexico now, and he like always titles his like videos something like Little Alaska or something. I'm like, dude, you can drive down the hill and you're out of the snow, and you can just go to a Walmart in an hour. Like I don't think you understand what Alaska is. Yeah, I don't recommend you check it out, but I recommend you check it out. It's a great guilty pleasure watch. At least just watch one rap and then just move on.
That's like the icing on the cake on that he also raps. Yeah.
Well, I think that's how he like started blowing up, was like he must do like Instagrams or TikToks, and like some celebrity, like maybe even an NBA player or something, like liked or forwarded one of his stupid songs. And yeah, this guy is just like, he's basically a walking, breathing, the stereotypical like white kid who just like appropriated black culture in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then he thinks he's going to live off grid.
But he's also going to live off grid.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Which is weird because that's one of the whitest things possible.
Right. Yeah. This is very, very, very extreme on either end. Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Huh.
And if he does eventually get himself killed, I'll update everyone. So
Will is dead.
Yeah, Will didn't survive, everybody. I'm waiting for that video. I mean, I hope he does for his sake, but I don't know how that's gonna work. I just keep thinking back to that. What was that movie where that guy, like, based on that dude who went out in Alaska?
That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah. That nobody knows that guy's name other than the guy that got himself killed, turned into bear shit.
100%. And this guy said the same thing. Like on one of his last videos, he's like, "I'm gonna go up there with like a 30-pound bag of rice." I'm like, "Oh, you are so fucked, dude." So fucked. It's gonna be great. Him and his 2 dogs. He'll die, and the dogs will eat him, and they'll escape, and that's how they'll find the body. So. Well, on that upbeat note, should we kick off the weekend rental? Anyone again who's not initiated, the weekend rental is a game we pick for a given system. We play it all the way through, or as far as we can get, and give our opinions on whether we would personally buy, rent, or burn that game. The system, I guess, technically would be PlayStation in this case, but we're talking about Klonoa. I think we both played the remastered versions that just came to modern consoles in the last, year or two, probably.
Yeah.
So Klonoa 1 and Klonoa 2, we're focusing just on the first game that originally came out for the PlayStation. Um, yeah, Klonoa is an interesting game. I always tell people it's the closest thing to a platforming game on a non-Nintendo console that felt like a Nintendo developed game around that time.
Hmm.
It's an interesting design too because it was still when people were trying to figure out 3D and how platformers worked in 3D spaces. So there was a lot of different directions that went, especially before Mario 64. And what makes Klonoa interesting is that they continued with a basically side-scrolling game, but it's rendered out in 3D environments and it wraps around and scrolls in a really interesting way, which leads to some foreground and background depth that you just don't see in too many games. It's very much a product of its time and its hardware, um, and it's kind of one of those series that's loved now. Got critical praise back then, but just mostly got forgotten until retro collecting became the thing, right?
Yeah, and I think it's because it's 2D planed that where it was like Mario 64. You see that and you're like, well, that's
Right.
why would I want to play Klonoa anymore?
And it's such a cute game and Nintendo-ish vibe game on a console that was being targeted heavily
Mhm.
at teenagers and how gory and gritty and dark and different it was from Nintendo that it felt like such a mismatch for the platform it came out on.
Yeah, and that's strange because I feel like Namco is such a they were always with Nintendo. I don't
Right.
that this game really didn't come out on I mean the 64 could have handled it. I would have thought. I guess there is some voices maybe, but not I mean it's nothing way out of line that couldn't have happened, I don't think.
No. No, I mean there's like some video cutscenes and stuff too, but again, yeah, you'd think there would have been. Yeah, I don't know what the reasoning was for it. I mean, and beyond that, I mean, when you look at so we kind of talked about this before the show, the Klonoa phenomenon. I think everyone who played games in that generation knew the character because it was kind of a big deal in a span of like 4 years. I think this game came out in like 97 ish, 98 maybe. 98 seems late, but maybe. And there was this game, the sequel, which was heavily pushed in the early PlayStation 2 days. Then there was a Wonder Swan game and a Game Boy Advance game. It was very high on Namco's priority list to license this character and build a following, and it just all petered out in a very short time.
Yeah, as soon as they saw it wasn't happening, they shut it down immediately.
Yeah.
And really haven't revisited it till now. I think this is the first time that they've actually been like, "Hey, remember Klonoa?"
Well, and you could even tell like they almost half-assed it. Like this didn't get a physical release in North America.
Mm,
I have
yeah.
the physical version for Switch, but I had to import it from PlayAsia. I mean, it came digitally everywhere. You get it on Steam,
Mhm.
but I mean, even then, it just shows that they didn't have the confidence in it to justify printing physical versions.
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of crazy when, even limited run will be like, "Sure, we'll do that."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and it's your typical platformer story. It's like good versus evil. Evil's taking over the land. I'd like to tell you I know what the story is, but this game is so disgustingly cute, and it's one of those games with the waka 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 speech, which
mhm.
I find horribly annoying. So I skipped the majority of the cutscenes in this game. All you need to know is like you're a weird cat dog person, bipedal person thing with big floppy ears, and you kind of have like a yo-yo type mechanic to grab and throw enemies on screen. So it's almost like I equate it to like a Kirby style game. Like this plays a lot like Kirby to me, in a 2D plane.
Yeah. I You're not really taking the powers of like a Kirby game, but
Right.
it does have that.
With that double jump and the float.
Yeah.
As far as the platforming goes, I can't like relate it to anything other than like Kirby's the next closest thing.
Yep. I mean, if you've never played this game, I mean the one mechanic that's really kind of known in Klonoa is, you grab an enemy, and if you have an enemy, you can double jump,
Yep.
basically.
And you can also throw it at upcoming enemies on screen. You can throw them at enemies in the foreground or objects in the foreground, enemies in the background, puzzle pieces or switches you need to hit in the background. So it is cool that it has this like unique, fully 3D world where you're locked into this 2D plane, and it really kind of makes you think in a very unique way that most platformers don't.
Yep.
And all along, like, and some people will probably disagree, like it really is a game that does a great job of like the visual spectacle. It really tries to emphasize like these detailed backgrounds, I mean, for the time, and kind of showing you the whole world, and maybe the path that you're going to be following later on in the level as things wind around. It's a very unique experience in that regard.
Yeah, seeing where you're going to be going is cool in some regards, and then crucial in others.
Right.
Like, because some spots you're like, oh, you see it before, you see the ending to a spot that before, and then you kind of know which direction to go,
Mm-hmm.
which is really helpful. Because can get confusing. Sometimes you're switching planes altogether.
Yeah.
Sometimes, which that can get kind of confusing about like, okay, where do I need to go? Where do I need to be? It is one of those games where there's collectibles, so they'll throw in, a fork in the road, and one of them gets you to a collectible, while the other one, takes you to the end of the level. So there's some of that going on, kind of backtracking if you miss something.
Yep.
I didn't get too far into that. Like, I didn't get all of the collectibles in every level when I played it, but
Yeah, I don't think I did either. I mean, there were a couple where I managed to find them all, but
mhm.
and that's really like where the added difficulty comes from in the game, or the exploration, because the base gameplay in this game, like a Kirby game, is for the most part painfully simple. There is, obviously nothing, not, things, nothing ever has that same Nintendo level of polish, and there are very simple hazards that can absolutely drain your life count if you're playing carelessly in a otherwise straightforward level. But for the most part, there isn't a lot of challenge to this game until you get to the upper tiers. I would say once you get past like the fourth stage, and the levels really start winding and requiring a lot of elements from you in a single run without a continue. But for the most part, the rest of that game is super approachable. Um, when they start having you go through more doors and stuff, though, as you get later on into some of those stages, that's where the 2D mechanic and the lack of perspective in some cases can make things very frustrating, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not always super clear where you need to go or what you might need to interact with, because even some of the
Yeah.
pieces that you interact with, the switches, like, they don't necessarily jump out at you until you start to get how the game plays and is designed.
Yep.
It's so easy to miss that stuff and like reach a what seems to be dead end until you figure that out.
Yep. I do appreciate this game. They could have really gotten hard toward the end of the game, because obviously with the double jump stuff, you can double jump, quickly grab another thing, and do some. If the enemies are there, you can do infinite jumping, right?
Yep.
Um, and they could very well easily said, okay, this is what this level is. If you want to get somewhere, you have to do that,
Yeah.
or you die. There are some limited spots where they do give you that challenge, but it has a safety net underneath where you're not. It's going to be like, oh, you didn't do it. Just try
Right.
again.
Or it's
Um,
relegated to like a collectible or something where it isn't
yep,
necessary for progression, but if you can get there, you get the reward, which is
yep,
nice.
yep. So I appreciate that, where it wasn't like super brutal, because it very well could have gotten to that point with that type of mechanic. I know
Yeah.
a lot of indie games now, if those type of mechanics, that's what those games are. They become, you got to get these, actions done the exact way if you want to reach over to this section.
Yeah. Well, and that was one thing I wanted to touch on. You mentioned something that I thought while playing this, besides like the exploration and that stuff, this is a platformer that very much has one intended method or route to get through something. Like there's no real creativity in overcoming an obstacle. There is one way to do it, and you need to figure that out and do that, which is, I mean, good and bad. It's hard to get lost or screw something up, but it's also, you know, you kind of turn your brain off at some point too.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Mind if I talk about the end?
Now go for it. I, I I fell just short for everyone listening. I got up to the last stage and I just kind of ran out of steam.
Okay. At some point, your grandpa dies. The
Oh
bad guy
no!
kills your grandpa.
In front of you?
Yeah. So you
That's
do
scary.
end up. That's one of the cutscenes, kind of toward the middle, where you head back to your where you
Oh,
started, and the bad guy
I
comes and
definitely
kills your
skipped
grandpa.
over that.
Yep. Kills your grandpa. The little puffball that's inside your ring.
Hmm.
That's a real. He's like the prince of the Moon Kingdom. He turns into a boy. And then you take on the final boss, and the little boy like sacrifices himself, basically. But oh, we'll always be friends. Don't worry, we'll be. Our friendship is forever. Blah blah blah. Right?
Yep.
Beat the boss. You end up saving the kid anyway. He's fine. Cut to end game. The boss game. The boss is gone. Celebrate. The world is saved. This one, the prince goes up to Klonoa and says, "Oh, I have to tell you though, this is not your world. I made all this stuff up, put it in your head. Um, your grandpa's not real. Like all of this stuff is none of this is real."
He matrixed him.
Yeah, he matrixed him and says, and in order for us to cleanse this world of this evil of some other girl that like sings, you need to leave because you're not supposed to be here anymore. So you get sucked up in a portal and then the game's over.
So you did all that. And he tells you to get fucked, basically.
Yeah.
That's
After
very
he's
warm
like,
and
we'll be
fuzzy.
forever. We're best friends forever. We're going to be blah, 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 blah. And then the very next scene after you save the world. Yeah, I made all that up just so I used you and you need to leave.
Wow.
And it wasn't even like in a nefarious way. Like they were like, I don't know if there was something in Lost in Translation on that because it
Or
just
maybe it's
feels
like a little
weird.
bit of Nights into Dreams scenario or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
That
I don't
seems
know. It
wild.
is. It's really weird
It's
for
such
them
a
to just like.
nonsensical story to begin with, too. To throw that in makes no
Yeah,
fucking sense.
yeah,
Well, it's a very non Nintendo ending.
yeah. So basically, I guess Klonoa just goes to. He gets shoved through all these different dreams, and what a life! He doesn't even know who he is, where he's from, but he gets stuck in other people's dreams, and people just like tell him what the reality is, just to use him.
When he wakes up on the Wonder Swan at some point, it's a real rough day.
Uh,
Yeah, that's wild. I'll have to finish it. I just I spent the last couple hours today grinding out that fifth stage because I found that four orb stage very frustrating because I was just like trying to rush it.
oh
I was like,
yeah,
I just need to slow down and yeah, it's interesting. And that boss battle, and that's something we should probably touch on too. Is like the boss battles because of when you think of how this game is designed of being 3D on a 2D plane. There's only so much you can do with a boss battle. So they're all very the same ish. They're all very 3 rounds. Get your attacks in, avoid their attacks, get your attacks in, and if you do it right, 3 rounds and you're done. If you do it wrong, you can also get wiped incredibly fast. Um, and they're just not that fun, to be honest. They're all kind of the same ish. The depth, of throwing stuff into the foreign background is spotty in those situations. it just doesn't feel very satisfying. It feels more like I would say most of those boss battles feel more like an exercise in self defense than they do like a reward for taking on a challenge.
Yeah, and they're very much like the showpiece too. Like they went out of their way
Sure,
to be like,
the
this
visual,
is the visual stuff.
yeah,
Especially that one on the bridge, that
the
or
plant,
the swinging one. Yeah, that one's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. I don't know. So, given everything we said, what do you think you'd give this thing on the Byron Burn scale?
I think I'd have to give it a buy. It's it's remarkably solid for how I mean it's a very mature 2D platformer in the life cycle of those type of games.
Yeah,
So it should have been pretty good at that time. Just nobody was paying attention to it. And the remaster is actually pretty sharp.
yeah,
I have to say I like the remaster quite a bit.
yeah. You can definitely tell you're playing an older game, but it's up to snuff.
Yep. Yeah, it's a buy.
Yeah, I'd probably go buy it too. I mean, I think if we were doing like on a rating scale, I feel like this game sits at like a 7. You know, so it's not it's a good, not great, but it is a
Yeah.
buy just because it's so unique. And I remember playing this on the PlayStation. You know, and there's been a remake for the Switch, which is also now incredibly rare. But it's nice to see it come back again and get people the chance to pick it up and play it again because it is really just a very charming, uniquely designed because of its point in time style of game, and people should experience it. It's good.
They should make another one.
Maybe they will.
Maybe
Yeah,
he's dead. Maybe he's just like lost into dreamland. I don't know.
I wish they would have done the whole collection, right? Like even if they hadn't upported the Wonder Swan and GBA one, like wouldn't it have been cool just to have them running in an emulator on that thing
Hmm.
as a
Yeah.
bonus once you unlock the games?
Yeah, because I mean, you're not going to use those anywhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
I did hear though that the Wonder Swan is getting a flash cart now finally, so
Wow.
I might have to rebuy a Wonder Swan. I probably won't because why? But yeah, solid game. Cool pick too. We don't do a lot of 3D stuff, so
Right. Yeah. So I want to hear what, some of us have always played some of these later gen 2D platformers. I guess Crash kind of fits into that, right? Sort of.
yeah,
I mean, he's going forward and backward. That's only one direction.
yeah. Pandemonium did the same sort of thing, but that was
Yep.
like basically a launch title.
Yep. Yep. But yeah, if send us what you think is your favorite to our email address at weekendrental@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter or X. You can find us there. But
And we
until
might be
next
doing more
time,
on Twitch now, right? Like potentially. Gonna
yeah,
try maybe finally.
we're gonna test out some stuff over there. So check us out over there, twitch.tv/weekendrental. We're over there. But until next time, be kind, rewind.